Hi, everyone. Judge Andrew Napolitano here for Judging Freedom. Today is Friday, September 5th, 2025. It's the end of the week in the U.S. On the East Coast, it's the end of the day. It's our favorite segment when we catch up and wrap on the events that occurred in the previous week, our Intelligence Community Roundtable with my dear friends Ray McGovern and Larry Johnson.
Yes, sir.
Ray, to you first. Can the President of the United States order the murders of people who are not at war with the U.S. and who are not committing an act of violence at the time he orders them murdered?
Well, I'm not even a lawyer, Judge, but I know that the answer to that is no, he cannot.
Right. It doesn't take a legal scholar. That's the point to understand that. What about, Larry, the people who are ordered to do it? Who know that it's illegal, immoral, unconstitutional, can they refuse to carry out his order?
Yes. And let me say, over a 23-year period, I was involved in the scripting of about 254 military exercises for the Joint Special Operations Command. This, includes the Tier 1 units, Delta Force, SEAL Team 6. And in each of those exercises, there always comes a point where you issue an execution order. That doesn't mean to kill somebody. That means to launch the operation. But within that X order, there are listed rules of engagement. I never saw in those 23 years and 253 exercises rules of engagement that said you are authorized to kill somebody who's not carrying a weapon and who's not shooting at you. Never. So what should have happened here is the military commanders and the chain of command should have resigned in protest. Now, we also have to consider that this thing may actually not have happened, that this may have been AI generated, because it doesn't make sense. Those 3 outboard motors on the back, they suck out a lot of gasoline. We're told that this was ferrying drugs to the United States from Venezuela. Do these people not understand how far that is?
It's 1,300 miles as a crow flies. No way could they have traveled that distance.
Yeah, exactly. So, or they could have had stopped at the floating gas station somewhere out in the Caribbean or the Gulf of America or Gulf of Mexico or whatever. But number one, and if you're hauling drugs, why are you carrying 11 people? You could have another bag of drugs on there for each one of those people. So, the whole thing doesn't add up. But the fact that they say, oh, trust us, we know that they were bad guys. Okay, so they're bad guys. We're carrying drugs. Stop them, intercept them, take them into custody, take the drugs into custody, and then put them on display and say, here's the evidence.
Put them on trial or interrogate them, negotiate with them, find out where the drugs came from, who their dealers are. Yeah. Ray, what is the role of Intel likely to have been in this event?
Well, let me just say that, when we talk about rules and regulations and laws, rules, schmools, doesn't matter anymore, all right? Now they're going to rename the Department of Defense. My candidate was for the Department of Macho Masculinity. Okay?
You better not say that too loud because the guy in the Oval Office might pick up on it.
Well, he doesn't have to pick up on it. He's addicted by it. And so was the guy Heathsick and the others. It's crazy. Now, there's no reason to do this. It was kind of a response to what Trump said. Well, let's do something. Oh, God, what's going on in China? My God, they're all against us. Let's show the world that we can do something. And everything Larry said, of course, is completely true. It's makes no sense at all. Now, as far as the special operations folks, Larry, I'm sure, did really good scripts. But what they did in practice, I don't know. They follow orders, and there's very, very seldom the case that anybody would say, now, wait a second, you want me to kill people with a just cause? Well, I quit. Well, that doesn't happen very much. Right. I can't remember it happening in decades.
Yeah, no, I agree. There should have been resignations in the lead up to the invasion of Iraq in 2003. Nobody did.
Right.
Nobody spoke out in protest.
Right.
But what I am saying is they're still with his in the culture of the guys who are the operators, that they usually, there are exceptions to this, but they're usually pretty strict about, we got to have the rules of engagement, because they understand they can get their ass hung out there, and they want to make sure they have cover, and not just because they're going to get threatened by bad guys. They recognize their own chain of command would throw them overboard in a heartbeat sometimes, if you, with the right, with the certain kind of commanders in charge.
Do our conservative Republican friends who are applauding this realize that a President Gavin Newsom or a President Bernie Sanders could declare some right to life protester or somebody saying things he doesn't want to hear as a narco-terrorist and blow him away by the same standard? The DOJ and the White House legal counsel, I don't know who the White House legal counsel people are, there's about 150 of them, but I do know the DOJ is some of the smartest lawyers in the country. They've had 5 days to come up with a legal justification. They don't have one yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, Larry, you did a lot of work recently on comments and insights from President Putin that he shared in a lengthy speech and Q&A from Beijing. I'm just going to play a small portion, and I'll let you expand on it, because your examination of this was of the full speech. This is just of the core of it. Chris, cut number 2.
And after we, at the insistent urging of our Western European colleagues, withdrew our troops from Kyiv, the situation immediately changed, and we were told, almost verbatim, "Now we will fight until either you tear our heads off or we tear yours off." I don't remember whether I've ever said this publicly or not, but that's roughly how it sounded. Only in cruder terms, but quite openly, and oddly enough, in a sort of comradely way. So now it's either us or you. Well, and this all continues.
What else did he tell the press in that lengthy, unscripted press conference in his typical methodical, detailed, practically footnoted style?
Yeah, he proved his chops as a lawyer, and I mean that as a compliment, not as an insult.
Okay. Thank you, dear Larry.
Yeah, but, because sometimes when you call people a lawyer, boy, that I've worked with organized criminals who are actually more honorable than some lawyers, but that's off topic.
I get it.
He went through and explained. He said, "Look, I'm happy to talk to Zelensky, but let me tell you why it's really probably a waste of time." He says, "It is true that the Ukrainian constitution stipulates that if you're at war, you're not going to hold elections. But," he said, "there's nothing in the Constitution that says when a president's 5-year term comes up, and if there is a state of war or there's martial law, that therefore the term of the president gets extended." He says it doesn't say that. What it says is that the president, the power is passed to the head of the Rada, like the Speaker of the House. And he says, so in that case, that would be the person that we should be talking to. He says, but, I can talk to Zelensky, but what's the point, he said, because he is not legally in a position to make any decision and to sign anything that's going to hold up under the Ukrainian constitution. And he didn't miss a beat. He wasn't searching for words, and he just, he laid that out. And then he also went in and had an extended discussion about, in response to Friedrich Merz calling him the worst war criminal of the 21st century. And instead of him reacting, he doesn't get emotional with that and doesn't hurl insults back. But that was in the context of that piece that you just played. He went on to say, look, we signed an agreement in 2014, and that agreement was going to find a way out that this would have been peaceful. He said, and a month later, in February of 2014, the West launched a bloody coup against us. So he was rehearsing it all. His positions on these issues had not changed a whit, and he didn't take the bait from Donald Trump. Instead, when Trump made that thing about Xi, Putin, and Kim of North Korea conspiring, Putin played it off as, that Donald Trump, he's a jokester.
Right, right. Ray,
Well,
Are
let me add, Judge, to
Go ahead,
what Larry just said.
please.
You rightfully praise him for having done this. I read it in the middle of the night and I said, this is really good. Maybe I can shorten it and print it out. So I'm going to read you the other side of the story. And that is what Putin said about the United States. Here it is. Nevertheless, it seems to me that if common sense prevails, it's going to be possible to agree on an acceptable way to end this conflict. This is my assumption. Moreover, we can see the mood of the current US administration under Trump. It is not just about their calls, but their genuine desire to find a solution. I believe there is a glimmer of hope at the end of the tunnel. Second time in 2 weeks he's used that term, a light or hope at the end of the tunnel. Let's see how this situation unfolds. If not, we will have to address our challenges through military means. He goes on to say that among all those guests in China, there wasn't one that criticized his approach to Anchorage, nor did anyone speak ill of the current Trump administration. God.
Well,
Now,
they
this
have
is after rehashing all the betrayals that the Biden administration and those
right.
before. So he's going out on a limb, and I would ask you all, why do you think he says these things if he doesn't actually have some hope or expectation that in the final analysis he'll be able to deal with Trump and come with something more than a complete surrender of Ukraine? Let it prosper, but let it not be a threat to Russia.
Larry, I think Ray's analysis is spot on. But do you think that Putin would settle for anything less than the original demands? No NATO, Ukraine neutral, and the Russian-speaking oblasts are part of Russia?
Oh, no. Yeah, he made it very clear. He's walking. He's got this fine line that he's walking. But on the one hand, he says, look, they're going to the West has got to recognize that the 5 oblasts that we have right now, Crimea, Zaporizhia, Kherson, Donetsk, Luhansk, those are permanently part of Russia. Those aren't going back. They're not going anywhere. And in the future, once this military affair is concluded, if the people in Odessa or Dnipropetrovsk, Poltava, Sumy, if they vote to join Russia, then that's their choice. We're going to honor that. And if they prefer to stay with Ukraine, we're going to honor that. So he's been very clear, but he says no NATO in Ukraine. And just today reiterated it at the Vladivostok Eastern Economic Summit. He said, look, any NATO troops that go into Ukraine, they're going to be legitimate targets and we'll kill them.
Well, that's the law. That's the law of war. If Mertz, who's crazy, if the president of France, Macron, who's a megalomaniac, if Starmer, who's barely hanging out to office, if they put troops on the ground, they are legitimate law in Ukraine. They're legitimate lawful targets, are they not?
Yeah, I just hope to God they don't do anything that foolish, because you're right, they will be killed. Now, what do I want to say here with respect to additional comments on what Larry so oh yeah, he says, look, Putin, we're happy to have regional security arrangements, but not at the expense of other people. And there's been no talk at Alaska or anywhere else about trading ground for some kind of guarantees. We never spoke about guarantees. So, he's been level-headed, and he's been saying, look, this is the real situation. Deal with it. And Trump, this worries me, Judge, worries me greatly. And this has been spoken about before, particularly by Larry. Trump is not well mentally. I mean, I had a chance over the weekend to watch some of his Q&A. My God, the guy is sick. And that means something to people like Putin looking on and saying, what the hell might they do? So this is the fly in the ointment here. My God, they can't depend on a reliable partner, which have resumed calling the Americans partners. He may be a partner, but he's crazy. And what will he do next? They don't know.
Yeah.
Ray, are CIA agents still on the ground in Ukraine? And what do you think they're telling Langley? the end is near, or keep sending equipment? We can pull this out.
Well, it's the latter. We can hang in there. You just give us what we need. But it doesn't really matter what the agents on the ground will say. They'll always say, from their myopic perspective, it's what he's being told by the head of the CIA, by Tulsi Gabbard. And my God, when you think about December 2022, the year of the invasion, Tulsi Gabbard's predecessor said, don't worry about it. The Russians are on the back foot. They're losing arms and they have no indigenous capability to build the arms. We're just sitting fine. December 2022, 6 months later, Putin gets up and says, on the advice of Bill Burns, the Russians have already lost and their military has been shown to be a disgrace before the whole world. Now, I hope that there are enough level-headed people in the CIA and working for Tulsi Gabbard that they're giving Trump a better idea. But from Trump's mouth, there's no guarantee about that, because he keeps saying the Russian economy is falling and the Russians are running out of soldiers. My God. So I don't know if he imagines this stuff or he gets it, but my God, it's very, very dangerous from the Russian point of view.
And Judge, yeah, let me chime in with, I'll give you one real world example during the Contra Wars back in 1986-87. It realized ancient history, but we had a couple of analysts from the Nicaragua branch. Fulton Armstrong was one, and they went down to Honduras, and they were verbally attacked by the case officers, but not the case officers attacked them by saying, "What the hell? Why aren't you guys reporting what we're sending back?" And they go, "Well, what are you talking about?" What turned out, your old buddy Jack Devine was involved with this, where they were quashing the intelligence that was coming back from the officers on the ground.
Wow.
So it was actually they didn't want that bad news to be reported to the White House. So we don't know right now if the case officers that are there deployed forward, if they're accurately reporting, or if they're playing politics. Both are possible, and they can both happen at the same time. But you don't need the intelligence officers to tell you. It's like if it's raining outside, you don't need to turn on the television and watch a weatherman to tell you that it's raining. Okay.
Time for another footnote, Judge. Another little footnote. Yeah. Okay. I was working on the PDB. At times, I was acting chief of the President Daily Brief. Okay. I used to brief it downtown every other morning, early morning, to Ronald Reagan's chief advisors, vice president, secretary of state, and so forth. And when Ronald Reagan was awake, I'd brief him as well. Now, the question is, when we had a draft on what was going on in Central America, Bill Casey told us we had to coordinate it with the operatives running the Contras in Nicaragua. Now, do we obey that? To the letter, we obeyed that. Do we take into account the operators' points of view? Only if they made any sense, because they never got to see the PDB, so there were never any reclamas. So this was the start of politicization. You never let the operators comment on your final product, except in this instance where Casey's, no, you don't want to say anything that will turn the noses around of the people we got working in the field to defeat those communists in Nicaragua.
Wow. All right. Chris has a very interesting video, which may be of the people you're talking about. Larry, watch this.
We are being arrested right now for interrupting a foreign affairs hearing on nominations because the U.S. is complicit in genocide. They are complicit in the slaughter of babies.
The United States government is complicit in genocide.
Don't touch them.
You have an obligation to the Constitution of the United States.
Eddie.
I'm a disabled veteran.
Eddie. There's a genocide. There's a genocide. Stop.
You are all complicit in genocide.
You're complicit in a genocide! You're complicit in a genocide! Eddie, there's a genocide! Eddie, there's a genocide. Come on, Eddie. There's a genocide. You are complicit in genocide of the Palestinian people. You are complicit. Come on, Eddie. Eddie, help us. Eddie, help us save them. Come on, Eddie. The Israeli terrorists are committing a genocide, and the U.S. Congress and Senate are complicit in funding the bombs that are forcing children to be slaughtered and massacred. The Israeli terrorists are starving children.
Arresting us for speaking out against genocide.
Stop the bombs!
The U.S.
Yeah, that was Colonel Aguilar. That was Colonel Aguilar.
That was Aguilar. The only person missing there was Ray McGovern, who's been there. Can Hamas effectively prevent the IDF from invading and taking over Gaza City, Larry?
They can inflict a heavy price on Israel. Israel's got every military advantage over Hamas, but the one advantage Hamas does have, and the various Palestinian groups, because Hamas is not the only one. Palestinian Islamic Jihad is fighting as well. There are several other guerrilla units that have formed. But I think Israel, with the ultimate brutality, they could slaughter everybody in there and kill their own hostages in the process. But I think what has been demonstrated so far is Hamas has still got enough firepower that they're able to inflict losses on the Israeli forces that are at least causing the commanders to say, "Whoa, wait a second, we can't afford this." They've also had to activate another 70,000 reservists, but a lot of the reservists are refusing to report. So Israel's got some real significant internal problems as they try to, they think that they can kill their way out of this. I don't think they can. But it is, this is a little bit reminiscent of what the Nazis did to the Warsaw Ghetto. They had it surrounded, and they just tried to bomb it into oblivion. The difference is the Hamas fighters, they do have firearms, they do have ammunition, they do have RPGs, they do have sniper rifles. Now, how they're getting resupplied, that's a whole nother interesting question.
Is CIA and MI6, CIA and MI6 Ray on the ground in Gaza?
CIA, probably not, in my view. They don't have to be. Mossad is sort of like a branch of the CIA. Right. Everything they do, or most everything they do, is shared with us. So it's sort of academic. You can see from the outside what's going on there. There are a couple of glimmers of hope. The Israeli economy is falling flat on its face. The Houthis have done great damage to them, and now other countries are beginning to deny the export of arms and stuff like that. It really depends on whether Trump, who has acknowledged that the sentiment in our country has changed about the slaughter in Gaza, whether he has any conscience at all, or whether he is still being deterred by what Mossad has on him, courtesy of Jeffrey Epstein. I believe it's becoming clearer and clearer that Mossad does have copious material on Donald Trump having to do with violating underage girls. Ooh. And I think that works on his mind here. And you're just not going to tolerate that because it would disgrace him, might even impeach him.
Do you share that view, Larry?
Yeah, I think what Trump is doing, he's creating an issue out of something that should have been a slam dunk for him. He had promised transparency. And, these files, everyone keeps focusing on, quote, a client list, like there's a little black book. But what you have are all of these women who have come forward as whistleblowers, as affiants, testifying about what was done to them. And their testimony is out there. It's officially recorded in depositions. Release that, because they name names. and I don't know if you saw this week, James O'Keefe with his honey trap operations. What O'Keefe does is he hires a lot of attractive women and then puts them on dating apps, and they target men in they did it in the Biden administration and they're doing it in the Trump administration.
Yeah, didn't they just target somebody from the DOJ?
Yeah, he was like a deputy director or something in there. He was telling this girl that he's trying to pick up, yeah, what we're going to do is we're going to black out all the Republican names and just put out the Democrat names. So we're
going to bribe Ghislaine Maxwell.
Yeah. And so then when it comes out, he said, "Oh, I didn't say that. I just trying to get over on a girl."
Just to add a little, the women who are coming out and speaking through tears now, understandable, are the ones that survived, are the ones that didn't commit suicide. Okay,
right. You're right, Ray. One of them, I think, who was involved with Prince Andrew on that nefarious island, committed suicide in the past year or so.
Right.
In her mid 40s. This stuff happened 30 years ago. Yeah. Wow.
Hey, can I make one comment on?
Yeah, of course.
Unrelated, but when Donald Trump threw his fit about not getting a big honorable mention at the Chinese victory parade on September 3rd, because of all the great sacrifice the United States made in the war in the Pacific. Clearly, he got his education about what the United States did in the Pacific from watching John Wayne and Sands of Iwo Jima. Okay. Now,
well, we know he doesn't read.
Yeah. Well, and I guarantee you, I bet 98% of Americans out there and even the ones watching this, do not understand that in the war in the Pacific, in World War II, that war for the Chinese started in 1938. And from 1938 to December 7th, 1941, the United States did not say one damn thing in protest of the Japanese killing all those Chinese, number one. Number two, the Chinese army fought 70% of the Japanese army throughout the entirety of World War II. In other words, we, the Americans, only faced 30% of the Japanese army during World War II. We lost 110,000 Marines, soldiers, and sailors in the Pacific. The Chinese, 3.5 million soldiers died, and between 15 and 20 million civilians were killed by the Japanese. So I can see President Xi saying to Donald Trump, "What are you talking about? Yeah, you played an important role, but we're the ones who pinned down the bulk of the Japanese army, so you weren't fighting 100% of it in the Pacific."
Here's Trump's latest post, dripping in sarcasm. "Looks like we've lost India and Russia this is today, to deepest, darkest China. May they have a long and prosperous future together, President Donald J. Trump." Geez, how did we lose India to deepest, darkest China, Mr. 50% tariffs?
That was the craziest thing I've ever done. Let me add a little thing about World War II. When you're old as I am, you have a perspective that might help. Seems to me that we fought with the Russians to defeat the Germans and to defeat the Japanese. And we also helped the Chinese a little bit, so what's happening now? Oh, now we're arming the Japanese and the Germans with intermediate range nuclear missiles to hit our old ally, the Russians. I mean, hello, you couldn't make a film out of this. No one would go see it.
Right. Gentlemen, thank you very much. A great conversation as always. And we'll look forward to, thank you for your double duty. But these conversations are terrific. I wish we had more time for them. We'll look forward to seeing you both on Monday morning.
Great.
Thanks,
have a great
Judge.
weekend.
Have a great weekend, guys. All the best.
Bye.
And on Monday, of course, Alistair Crook at 8 o'clock, Ray McGovern at 10, Larry Johnson at 11:30, and probably some of your regular favorites in the afternoon. Thanks for watching. Have a great weekend. Judge Napolitano for Judging Freedom.